delighted that you have found the Mindset Mentor Meets podcast. I'm Angela Cox, your host and indeed the Mindset Mentor, and I'll be interviewing executives and founders at the top of their game to find out what lies beneath. I want to know what makes people proud, how they define success, what holds them back, and indeed what drives them forward. This is authentic and natural conversation with the best in the business. So listen in, enjoy, and if you love what you hear, please do leave a review. And now, over to today's guest. Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I hope that you are doing well. I am excited today because in front of me on the Zoom screen, I have Leanne Culloden. Now, Leanne is the Strategic Account Director for Mitie, but she's also one of my really good friends. I've known her now for, it must be 3 years. She is a wife and a mum. She's a businesswoman. She's a leader. And she is so many more exciting things as well, which I'm sure she'll talk about during the podcast. Leanne, it's an absolute joy to have you smiling down the screen. How are you this morning?
I am really well. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm really excited.
Oh, it's just a joy. And it's nice to see you because I'm looking at you on the Zoom screen and behind you is a beautifully decorated lounge because you've just done lots of home improvements. And the last time I saw you, it was like plaster behind you. So you finally got it finished.
Yes, I did. I'm feeling zen. I am feeling calm. I am no longer looking at rubble or anything. So I am happy.
Oh, I don't know how you did it because you literally turned the whole house upside down. So you are a better woman than me. I would have gone crazy. So it looks gorgeous. I'm really glad that it's all finished. Now, obviously, I've invited you on the podcast. It's been a long time coming. And we're going to talk about your proudest moments. And I can imagine there are many. And I bet it's been hard for you to pick the 3. But let's start with your first one and let's see where that takes us, because it could be anywhere today.
It could. And you're right. I had to think long and hard about what I was going to select because there are so many personal, work-related moments of pride. And it goes without saying that I am a mum. So that is definitely the most proudest moment in my life so far, is becoming a mum. It's my little boy. But I decided to keep things on the work-related, personal-related items. So my first proudest moment is my first real taste of independence, I'm going to call it. So when I was almost 19, I decided to up sticks and go and live in Mallorca. Randomly, after booking a 2-week holiday with a friend of mine, we decided we were going to stay over there and get some work. And looking back now, I think, wow, this was the days before mobile phones, smartphones, internet was just coming out, really.
We were like 50p in the phone box. Yeah, is it one of those?
All of that, yeah. And I just think now the actual torture that my parents must have gone through at me just up in sticks. They had no idea when I was going to be in touch with them or how to get in touch with me. So just absolutely bizarre now that I look at it. But the reason why I've chosen that as one of the proudest moments is because it was my first real taste of independence, and I would absolutely encourage everybody to take themselves out of their environment where they grow up, go to school, hang around with, the people that are around them where they grow up, and go and meet new people, go off to a different place. And lots of people do get that experience from going to university in different cities, living in halls of residence, taking a gap year out, all of that sort of stuff. And I was that age. But I always knew from an early age that I did not want to go to university, much to many people's dismay. But I always knew that I did not want to do it. Now, I'm very studious. I soak up learning. I do every course that's available. I'm interested in lots of different things, as you know. Yeah. And I just knew that I didn't want to go to university. I always used to study the teletext. Remember teletext?
Yeah. You're showing your age now, Leanne.
Completely showing my age. What am I doing? But I used to go on teletext and they had jobs boards, jobs pages on teletext. And I was too young to apply for these jobs. But I'd scour the teletext and I'd write things down, and I'd one day dream of applying for these jobs and
Oh, wow.
go and get this job, and I'm going to go to work. And it was all very grown up and exciting and cool. And I just knew that I wanted to get out and work and not go to university. But I did decide to get out of the environment, and I went over to Mallorca for only a very short time. So the pride doesn't come from what I did over there, which was just working in bars and things like that. But the pride comes from actually taking that massive, massive leap at a very young age to say, I'm going to put myself into a different situation. It's all going to be brand new. I actually don't know what's coming. I do not know what happens when that 2-week holiday ends and we decide not to get on the plane home. So for me, that's a really proud moment because I met a lot of amazing people from different parts of the world. I learned a lot about human behaviour. I actually learned to manage money really well because I had to. There was none of this, Mum, can I have
Bank of dad and mum.
So I learned a lot about basically living as an adult. And yeah, I had a lot of fun times. I met some great people that I'm still in touch with to this day, and how our lives have changed since all of that, many, many years ago. But that is really one of the moments that I'll always take with me, is to say, I actually got off my backside and did something crazy and random that nobody else was doing in my circle. And I did it. And
and courageous.
Yeah, really
Such
courageous.
a courageous step.
Because I'd always grown up not feeling like I was courageous. You have various limiting beliefs, don't you, as you grow up. And one of them, for me, wasn't about having courage, but obviously I did, and I went off and did that. So by doing that, it led me onto a path for the rest of my life, and the way I shaped my relationships, the way I decided to operate at work, where I decided to live, all of that, it came from that experience. So I'm really proud of that.
And just talk to me about that bit in terms of the way that you decided to shape your relationships. What was the learning from that experience that you've taken into building relationships with other people?
So because I met a lot of people from all over the world, there was different personalities, different characters, larger than life personalities over in foreign countries, as you can appreciate. And one size doesn't fit all. And I think when we grow up, we're conditioned, aren't we, to believe that we need to behave in a certain way, act in a certain way, speak in a certain way to people, look a certain way, to a degree as well. So for me, I learned about everyone's differences and diversity. And that's helped me to understand and work in collaboration better with people, definitely in a work sense. But on a personal level, understanding people's differences and finding friendships in places I wouldn't have found them as well, which is great.
Oh, it's so calming listening to you today, but so joyous as well to hear that courage. And there's part of me sitting here wondering whether we were more courageous in our teens, late teens, because of the lack of responsibility that we had, versus now in adulthood when we're surrounded by, as you say, you've got Charlie, we have houses, we have relationships, we have jobs. And I'm wondering whether it's more difficult to make those courageous steps. And it might not be that we go and move to Mallorca or another place, for a period of time, but there is that essence of that 18, 19-year-old version of us that exists that can just foster that courage and take it into an experience of trying something new.
Yeah, and it's like that analogy, isn't it, of being on a roller coaster. So when you're young, you'll go on everything, you go on all the loop-the-loops, and as you get older, you develop this fear about actually going on these things, and you'll say, oh no, I'll leave you to go on that. And you don't push yourself, do you, in terms of your fears? And I think people allow fear to take over, and it stops them from progressing in many areas of their life, especially work. We see that all the time.
Yeah.
How many people are still in the same jobs they were years ago just because they are too scared to make that jump because of what it might mean for them. I'm a big believer in always trying to push yourself out of that comfort zone, whether that is going abroad to a foreign country and doing your own thing, or whether that is deciding to actually fill the application form and go after that, or everything in between. You have to recognise what your fears are and then really try and push yourself out there. That's what growth is.
I love that. And if there's one thing I know about you, you are a definite action taker. So there might be fear there, but you'll take that first step towards this new thing that you want to do. And then almost like the momentum builds and it carries you. So, I mean, if you were going to put anything on your CV, that would be right at the top of it in terms of, you get stuff done and you step over those risks and just make it happen. And it's one of the things I love about you. So tell me about your second one then.
So the second one is probably more of an action taken thing, actually. So I was working in a management position at Mitie. So I've been at Mitie for 12 years now. I started as a temp.
No!
I started as a temp and managed to not ever get rid of me. So
they wanted to keep you because you're so fabulous.
They did, yeah. I started as a temp and then I very quickly got my first management role. And then that was in another part of the country. So again, action taken. A role came up. It wasn't where I'm based in Liverpool, as you can tell by the accent for anyone listening. So I decided to up sticks and move to Leeds at that point. And I did do that for a period of time, but I wanted to come back over here. Mm-hmm. So an opportunity presented itself where they were looking for someone to lead a project. And the project was around mobilising a brand new contract where it was in the nuclear industry. It was a nuclear regulated site. And they were looking to start from scratch with a huge team of security officers as they were demobilising the civil nuclear constabulary from the site, which is basically armed police. Mm. And they wanted Mitie to take that over. And I was chosen to lead that project. And I'd probably been in management for Mitie about 2 to 3 years at that point. But being asked to take that on was still a little bit of a, oh my goodness, can I actually do this type of moment? Because we all get them, don't we?
Totally. Daily.
But the answer was, yes, I will do that. Because 2 reasons. One, I'm inherently a people pleaser, so the answer generally is yes anyway. But secondly, I thought, this is a real opportunity here. This is fantastic. So we did it. We were awarded the contract. We set up a team of 30 people, management, supervisors. We had them all trained to the exact standards that you would expect to see in a nuclear regulated environment. Really great team, which I handpicked all of the people for, along with a great team who were working alongside me as well. And we started boots on the ground on day one. And I was there, and it was just a real pinch me moment to look around and say, wow, look at what we've created here. Look at what I've led. And I was so proud of that moment, really, really proud of that, because it was the first time I felt I'd been in control of a full end-to-end project. And actually, we still have that contract now. And that's 9 years in, because we've delivered a fantastic service on there. We've got the same manager on there that we had at the very beginning. Yeah, and his role has grown and he's doing exceptionally well. We've got extra services on that contract and site now as well. And it's testament to the team that we've got there. But we also have some of the same original team members still working.
Oh, wow.
So I feel like I've been able to really support and help people in their careers to start at Mitie, to take an opportunity for themselves and to still be there nearly a decade later. It's amazing. And that's what I love. I really love in my role that I get to support people through that. And I get to support people in their development and passionate about people being able to grow their careers too. So that is definitely one of my proudest moments at Mitie.
And tell me about this idea of handpicking your team. So you're building a team with, dozens of people, and it's for something brand new. What do you look for in those people?
So there's definitely an extra sparkle that you're looking for in people, and you'll know from being in the facilities world as well. Not everybody is cut out for the roles that we have available, and a lot of people apply. We held an open day to actually bring everyone from the local community together to see who would be interested. We had a long process. We had 30 roles. I think we interviewed 250 people.
Wow.
So what we're looking for really, there are security roles. And what we say is that, we have many, many excellent security skilled operatives. But for this particular project, it was very customer focused. So we were looking to train the security elements, but we really wanted to focus on the softer skills, the customer skills. So we were looking for people to impress us with their communication, with the research that they'd done on the business, the site, the company, with their commitment, with their dedication, and pretty much that you could talk us through their history of what they've done to prove themselves to be worthy of, this position on this very prestigious location. So we had a lot of crazy interviews where people were completely inappropriate. So there's that thing where, you judge people within 5 seconds of meeting them. But you kind of have to tip that on its head when you're in that sort of situation, because we had a lot of people where they might have walked through the door and typically they wouldn't look like someone that you'd want in your team. But, asking probing questions and really getting to understand and know them, you're like, wow, this person is going to be a really great fit for team A, team B, and they're going to work with these other people I've identified. So again, it's about balancing people's strengths to create a great team. I think we had to create 4 separate teams at that point, and building a team A, B, C, and D with the strengths to balance what we were looking for, really. And it went really well, and it was a great process. It really was a great process. Again, taught me a lot about human behavior, and definitely what not to do in an interview situation for a lot of people, but also the fact that we've got some really, really amazing people potentially in the wrong jobs. We can give them an opportunity.
It's so true that it's almost like a jigsaw puzzle that you're putting together. So rather than hiring 30 clones of each other, you're really having to think about how these people will work together to deliver what it is that your client needs. And that attitude bit seems to be at the heart of that, as opposed to a skill set, which is really good to hear. I'm glad you picked up on that point about judging in the first 5 seconds as well, because I've got to say, my whole life, I have been the worst judge of character. For all the intuition that I have and everything else, I will love someone in the first 5 seconds and then gradually realize that they're not my cup of tea a bit later on down the line. And those people that I feel cagey about at the beginning become my best mates. So I think that idea of judging, you've got to almost like override that and be able to give someone an opportunity to show what they're about, because so many of us wear masks.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think a good interviewer will uncover that in an interview straight away. I get a lot of CVs. Some of the CVs, I think, wow, this person's amazing. And when they're sat in front of you,
you're going, are you the same?
Someone else has put that CV together for you quite clearly. But, conversely, people aren't great at putting CVs together, but when they are in front of you, wow, you give them a job all day long. So you really have got to take the time to make sure that you're doing a proper job as an interviewer.
Overriding that judgment at the beginning is such a brilliant one, but also so inspiring to hear you talking about starting as a temp in an organisation and then getting an opportunity which you grasp with both hands. And it's been a real stepping stone to where you are today. So that's inspirational for anybody who's starting out in a career, or, even returning to work after having children or whatever the situation might be. There's always an opportunity to start at the grassroots level and work up if you've got that tenacity and that drive to do that. So you're almost like a beacon of inspiration there, Leanne.
Aww.
Loving that. So 2 down. What about the third one?
So my third one is more about what I'm doing right now at Mitie and my role as a strategic account director. So I work in the security business of Mitie. Mitie is huge. Mitie has got lots of different services and many, many different clients for those different services. I provide security service at the moment to a large customer right across the UK. We have a very large team in the hundreds supplying those services every day. We started that contract on the 1st of April 2020. And that was, I think, about a week after the lockdown.
I remember,
First lockdown. So it was a little bit like, what do we do? The customer was obviously busy making their own plans about what that might look like for their business, and how that was going to operate. We were doing the same as a business. We were working in collaboration with that customer to decide what the next few months were going to look like, because it might not look like what was awarded in terms of the contract. So we worked really closely with the customer on that, and also with all of our teams, because we had a lot of people transfer into Mitie as employees on that day who were very uncertain about what that might look like for them, uncertain about if it was safe to go to work. Security, as you know, was a key operation key worker occupation. So was it safe for people to go to work? Were they needed at work? How was that going to pan out? So my proudest moments in terms of that really came from working with everybody right through that pandemic and still delivering an excellent service to the customer with our team who were phenomenal throughout. They got up every day, they went to work every day, they made sure that customer could operate their business, which again was a key part of the running of the UK without going into too much detail. But they got up and did that every day, and they did it with a smile on their face, and they did it with a new employer and with their own uncertainty. And we decided very much to work in collaboration with everyone at every level. So we set up different degrees of communication with everybody, whether that was face-to-face visits, whether that was roadshows. So I personally delivered an annual contract roadshow where we actually went out and sat down and said, look, this is what you've done to contribute to the clients, and this is what you've done to contribute to Mitie, in that period that you've joined us. And they'd never had that before.
Oh,
never.
God.
And, some of the people on our contracts have been on there for 30 years.
So this is with the old supplier?
Yeah. So when they move security suppliers, the staff transferred into the new supplier. They keep the length of service through 2P. And we have a lot of long-serving people on our contracts, 20 years, 30 years, 17, 19, they're all around that. And they've never actually had people sit down with them.
Good grief.
Describe, this is what we do, this is how you play your part, and thank you. And that was the biggest thing for me, was to get out there and to meet as many people as possible and say thank you, because it meant a lot to everybody.
Yeah, totally.
To the customer, to them. And we were able to build a really great relationship there, and we still have that great relationship. We still provide an amazing service to the customer, and that comes through from feedback. And our customers are absolutely delighted with the service that they get, and that fills me with pride, because that means that I'm doing my job.
You're leading it.
My ability. But not only that, the team around me. I have an excellent assurance manager who works along with me as well, and he's just as passionate about getting things right and doing things the right way first time as I am. And we're lucky to have an amazing operations team as well, right up and down the UK, who actually line manage the individuals who work across all of these sites and build that close-knit relationship with as well. So we're really lucky. I'm really lucky to be in this part of the business on this contract at this time in my role, and really proud to work for Mitie and to do this job.
And you do such a great job, because one of the challenges through COVID is that idea that obviously key workers need to be on site, but I'm guessing as a leader, it wasn't necessary for you to be on site and be putting other people at risk all of the time. So how did you manage that transition from being a very kind of hands-on, out in the contract style leader to one that's leading from your desk at home?
It's been hard. It's been a challenge, really, because like you say, you're used to getting out there, and a lot of our clients were not working from site, and our clients did not want us to come to site for that reason as well. So to actually go and do those visits, which were, potentially legally unnecessary as well as ethically unnecessary, it was hard to do that. But I'm a person with an open door policy, so anyone can come to me at any time. My emails are always open. I make sure I've put communications in place where we are getting people from a site level together on a Zoom on a regular basis, so we can see those face-to-face interactions and have that conversation and give people an opportunity to air whatever they need to air, positive, negative, anything in between. Ask questions of senior management as well, because I always use this phrase, but I'm very much aware that sometimes people are in their own little bubble.
Yes.
And it's very difficult for them to see life outside of that bubble. So I get to see all parts of Mitie because I'm interacting with lots of different people for different reasons. But when you're doing your job Monday to Friday in the same place, it's difficult to understand what's going on. So we did put that video communication in place very early on to make sure that people knew that they did have access to what they needed to do that. But also so we could let them know what else was going on in the business. When you're dealing with very serious incidents on a site, and we do get very serious incidents, you can feel like you're sort of out there on your own dealing with it. And even for the teams, just to know that actually 25 minutes up the road, they also had something happen as well this week, and let's talk about it, and let's share what happened. And we've got everyone talking about that. And again, they'd never had that before. So I think it's instilled trust and visibility. I think that's really important within leadership, is to have that open trust and be visible as well.
Yeah, and I really love the way that you've just articulated that, because when I hear leaders talk about the fact that they have an open door, that worries me slightly, because that puts all the onus on the people that work with them to come through the door. And often people aren't prepared to do that. So I always talk to leaders about, it's not enough to have an open door. You actually have to step through it and go and engage with your people. And what you've gone on to say is that you've actually provided those mechanisms for you to connect with your people at all the different levels and share what's going on in that broader context. So it's almost that builds the trust, your ability to connect and connect them with you builds that trusted relationship, which is making you so successful.
Yeah, we do. And we have a newsletter as well, which we issue quarterly. So we like to get a couple of mugshots in there, much to the dismay of people when we're asking for photographs and things. But we interviewed one of our supervisors recently who's got an amazing career pre-Mitie. And it's fascinating to understand the personal side of people's backgrounds as well. So we do things like that so we can promote other people's visibility as well. But yeah, there's a number of things that we put in place to make sure that we are getting out there, sharing the news, giving people an opportunity to have their input into things as well. And it's something that, we should be doing anyway as leaders. I think, we should definitely be out there and meeting people and knowing people's names and saying thanks. And all of that's really important to me.
Yeah, and that's that human element of you that comes through in everything that you do. So you've talked to us, you've given us a kind of a career history there, really, in terms of your proudest moments, from that brave decision to go to Mallorca in your teenage years all the way through to the role that you have now. One of the questions I've got for you outside of your proudest moments, because I think it's a real inspirational element of what you do, is I know that you're a mum to gorgeous Charlie, and Charlie is coming up to starting school age soon, isn't he? But you also have a husband who has an enormous job, and you have an enormous job. So I'm always keen to understand how you create the balance, because that kind of mum guilt that, I have it. Every woman I speak to who's got a child has the mum guilt thing going on. And then when they've got a husband who's got a massive job as well, it's that kind of, how do you do it? Share with us. How do you make it happen?
Well, I think I'll probably look back in about 5 years and say, that's how I made it happen. But at the moment, it's a little bit like, how do I make it happen?
Just happens.
Organisation clearly is required. And the mum guilt is real. It's a real thing. However, the way I choose to see it is that you have different areas of your life. So my son is incredibly important. My husband is, my family, my friends. You can make a list that could go on for 3 A4 pages there. But every area is as important as one another, and as long as you're prioritising and carving out the time for what's required and organising your time in that way, I think, am I on the laptop at 9 o'clock at night sometimes? Yes. Yeah. I feel bad sometimes because I rush Charlie off to bed so I can get breaks done. Yes. But equally, do I feel bad when Charlie gets sent home from nursery like he did last week because he was feeling poorly? Do I feel guilty putting the laptop down? No. So I have to juggle it that way, and I have to come to terms with what is important for me at that time. And as long as I'm communicating, that's really important. Me and my husband have to communicate a lot about
who's where,
who's doing the drop-off, where do we need, one of our mums to step in and help. We just have to have this military plan about how it all works and gets put together. But for me, it's about not letting the guilt consume you, because you could easily do that. And you just have to be really mindful about not doing it.
And what I love about you as well is that you don't compromise your self-care. So many women who are juggling all these balls almost put themselves last, but you never do that. You always, it's not that you always put yourself first, but you take really good care of yourself. You really look after that kind of self-care, what you look like, all of the good things that you do, your journaling and everything else. You really prioritize that as well as all of the other balls. And I think that's one of the reasons why women who do that can be so successful, because they're not heading into burnout all the time.
Absolutely. So I always say, if you do the inner work, that's the journaling, the personal development, the self-care, you will get the outer results.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's nice to go and get my hair blown once a week. And I do have a few non-negotiables in terms of self-care. Yeah. But the inner work does get the outer results.
Love that. The inner work does get the outer results. We almost need that in a little catchphrase. So, this might lead into the secret to success then, because it's the big question that I ask everybody towards the end of the podcast, and everybody's answer is different, which I love. So what would yours be?
My secret to success is not having all of the answers, or not believing that you have all of the answers. Because when you do that, you let your ego take over, and there's no room for growth, there's no room for learning, and potentially there is room for making the wrong decisions. So always being, I'm going to use the word humble.
Yeah.
And always seeking out more in terms of knowledge, information, learning. The secret to success is really understanding the people around you, how they work. At work, this I'm talking about. So at work, how everyone operates, what people are motivated by, how you can put together that team, how you can make a success of whatever you're working on, whether that's a small project, a large contract, whatever that may be. Don't assume that you know everything, and always take the help when it's offered, because I think, especially women, we want to be seen as superwoman, don't we? Mm-hmm. We want to be seen as the person who can do it all, can have it all, doesn't need the help, doesn't need to, show any weakness. And I think showing vulnerability and weakness is something that people resonate with as well.
Yes.
I think you're showing your leadership skills by almost showing that vulnerability, because people can identify with you more and you can help take them on a journey.
Yeah, totally.
And by doing that, you don't know all the answers and you're not weak. You're just learning and growing.
So it's like Mr. Microsoft, the CEO of Microsoft, whose name always escapes me. But he had this phrase about being a learn-it-all rather than a know-it-all.
Yeah.
And it's that you're talking about, isn't it? That kind of keep curious, keep learning, don't have all of the answers. Don't feel like you have to, because that puts enormous pressure on.
Yeah.
But also show that vulnerability.
Yeah, ask questions. One of the things that I talk to my clients about actually is, remember a lot of jargon that goes on in contracts and business speak and everything, and I'm not really a jargon person at all. So I will ask what I like, silly questions like, what does that mean? Can you just tell me what that means? And like about 10 years ago, I would have been terrified to say, I don't know what that means. I can't ask. And I'd just brush over it and ignore it and then Google it afterwards. Have you ever done that?
Been there.
So many times. But now I'll just say, what actually is that?
Yeah.
When I go into negotiations or a new thing that comes out with my customer, I will always say, right, how can we do this in the most easiest, simplest, efficient way? What's the easiest way for us to do this together?
Yeah.
And they say, oh, great, Leanne, right, let's work on it. And we come up with the answer, and it's great and it's jargon free, and we do it. And that's, I think, why it works so well.
It's like a breath of fresh air, I'm sure, for many.
But I would have been scared of doing that, Angela, 10 years ago.
I can totally agree.
I'd have to know the answers and be the big I am, and I don't need to be that anymore,
Yeah, and use all the fancy words that people don't really understand.
I didn't go to university. I don't have the fancy words.
You've got a million qualifications, though. You are a learn-it-all.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. Just simplicity in the way you operate as well. Sorry, I've given you about 3 there.
Oh, well, there always is. But I'm really picking up on the vulnerability piece and that asking for help piece and the being the learn-it-all. And I just want to say thank you to you at this point, because last year when I was in my kind of crisis mode with my husband and his brain injury, you said to me, what is it that you need right now? And I was like, oh my God, the list is endless in terms of things that I needed back then. And you did the most amazing thing. You did like a weekly shop and you had it delivered to my house at a time where I think I was surviving on like Twixes and double deckers and feeding the kids God knows what, like Quavers and things. And there you were, a really thoughtful shop. You even bought stuff for Cooper, my dog. And I remember it arriving and I just cried and just thought, oh God, I can actually be a decent mum this week because of Leanne. So I wanted to say thank you because that just shows how thoughtful you are.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Do you know what? It's been a long time coming, this podcast, and you have done yourself proud. It's just full of messages of inspiration in a really accessible way. You know, your career history speaks for itself, and you've got to where you've got to because you are brilliantly human. And the lessons that you've learned along the way and that you've shared with us will inspire many, I'm sure. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on.
I will love you and leave you. I want you to have a wonderful rest of the day. I know that you're struggling with a cough at the moment, so I hope that that improves and you get well soon. And I will speak to you very, very soon. Take good care.
Thank you.
And so, just like that, we're at the end of the podcast. I hope you've enjoyed your time listening today. And a big thank you from me for taking the time. I'd really love it if you would be able to leave a review because it really does help us to get noticed. And if you haven't already, why not subscribe and then you never miss an episode. I wish you a lovely rest of the day, whatever it is that you're doing, and I hope that you stay safe and well.